Well, it looks like the Philadelphia Eagles will be without both DeVonta Smith and Bryce Huff against the Los Angeles Rams. Are Jahan Dotson and Jalyx ready to step up? All that and more coming your way on this Friday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. I'm Louie DiBiase, joined as always by Gino Camilleri. We're brought to you today by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Getting you ready for Eagles-Rams this Sunday night. The Eagles are rocking the all-whites in L.A. for primetime football, but Gino, they will be without a couple key players on both sides of the ball. DeVonta Smith ruled out today with a hamstring injury that's kind of been lingering over the last few weeks. He didn't practice all week, including Friday. Bryce Huff yesterday placed on injured reserve, had a procedure done on that wrist injury that's had him fourth in the rotation of the Eagles' edge rushers. Overall, still think the Eagles should be favored in this football game. It does suck that you lost two key players, but I'm kind of excited to see how Dotson and Hunt step up, two young players that I don't think their small roles this year indicative of their performance. I just think veterans are ahead of them. And I think the more the season has gone on and the more they've kind of acclimated to these systems, I think both are more ready to go now than especially like Dotson early in the year. He's made a couple impact plays in back-to-back weeks.
We were asking early on when A.J. Brown was out for a little bit, was Jahan Dotson going to become the player that we thought he was when you acquired him for a third-round pick, which was somebody who in 4 to 6 games a season can step up for you as a number 2 wide receiver? I'm with you. I believe now that he can. I think this is the game where he can step up to the plate. Not the best secondary that you're playing against the Rams. I think there's going to be opportunities for him to separate. But with how Jahan plays, you just have to be willing to give him opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, where in the first couple games, Jalen Hurts was earning his trust and saying, all right, I haven't figured out the timing yet with this guy. But over the last couple weeks, it's clear that he trusts Jahan Dotson. He trusts Johnny Wilson, who's going to have to step up to the plate now as well. Those young guys, they got to hit their corner threes in this game, especially Jahan Dotson. He might have to hit a couple. He's not going to have to be DeVonta, but he's going to have to probably get anywhere from 2 to 4 catches, if not right around there, and keep them in this game and work in Dallas Goedert, work in Saquon Barkley. But those other guys, they can't be invisible. They can't be invisible like they were early on. And when it comes to Jalyx Hunt, it might take him a little bit longer to earn those snaps, like Vic Fangio has to earn your trust as well.
Yeah, he'll still be fourth in the rotation for sure.
He started to get some play last week, or against the Commanders, rather, on that last Thursday night game. I am super excited, dude. Like, I think he is. It's unfortunate that Bryce Huff has to go down. I thought he was really coming into his own, and I think we answer those questions why he was limited in his play the last couple weeks. It is clear because of the hand injury, obviously. But now Jalyx Hunt is going to be kind of forced into action here a little bit and asked to play some of these snaps. And Nolan Smith is going to garner more attention in the rotation. And I don't think it's the worst thing at all, Lou, that your young guys are going to have to step up in a really important game where Matthew Stafford, he does not scramble. Those edge rushers, man, they got to be on the hunt in this game. They have to know that we got a quarterback that is going to be standing at his landmark. We just have to beat our one-on-one to get to our landmark. And I think Jalyx Hunt against the run, still some question marks. Like, he's got to definitely pack on some pounds there if he wants to be a full-time edge rusher. But get him in those rotational minutes, man, like on third down, clear passing downs where you can use him in coverage if you need to, use him to get after the passer. He is kind of how I would just say Zach Bond is in that intermediate level where you could kind of interchange him with an edge rusher, with an inside linebacker. I believe that Fangio wants one of these guys at the edge position, and he just hasn't found it yet. And hopefully that's Jalyx Hunt, because Bryce Huff clearly wasn't that guy. And Brandon Graham, you don't want him dropping into coverage. Josh Sweat either. Nolan Smith can do it, but I think Jalyx Hunt, former safety, That's exactly the kind of role that you want Fangio to implement.
100%.
And he was handpicked by him, man. Like, that's his pick. You got to get him to work right now.
And Hunt's flash this year even forced a fumble on the kickoff return against the Dallas Cowboys that was recovered by the Cowboys, but forced a fumble 2 weeks ago. So I'm excited to see Hunt in that rotation. But yeah, when it comes to Dotson, like early on in the year, I would say he's probably not ready to go to carry on a bigger load, and he wasn't. I mean, you saw that against the Saints. You saw that against the Buccaneers before the bye week. His numbers when it comes to separation weren't great either, Gino, but I think a lot of that has to do with like what you were alluding to. Jalen and Dotson just not being on the same page yet. There really wasn't that trust factor, so he wasn't really getting opportunities to make plays like he did against. Like, Jalen wasn't giving him that one-on-one jump ball against Jacksonville early in the year. He wasn't giving him that back shoulder throw down the field against the Dallas Cowboys. Those two plays specifically over the last month show the timing is growing between the two, the chemistry, the trust is there. So now I do feel a little bit more confident that, yeah, Smith or Brown are out. Dotson can carry a little bit more of a workload here. So I think those couple plays are really indicative, or I should say really do represent like the growth between that Hurts-Dotson connection. So I think that bodes well for this matchup. And like you said too, like it's still going to go through Goddard, Barkley, and especially A.J. Brown. So it's not like he has to be wide receiver one.
Exactly. Like you and I always bring up like that Golden State analogy. It's like you're going to be without your Steph Curry, but you still got Kevin Durant, you still got Clay Thompson, you still got Draymond Green.
More, like he might have to shoot like 2 or 3 more.
Yeah, your Jordan Poole's going to have to step up a little bit here, a little bit. And I'm really excited too, Lou, because how they were using him early on, it was clear that they had a role in mind, like these manufactured type of touches. But the touches he's gotten the last couple weeks, outside of the one where he got that Ainias Smith look, and I was thinking of you when that happened. It's like, they gave it to Jahan instead of Ainias on that nice little manufactured touch.
Wasn't that the first throw?
Yeah, and when he has been in those manufactured touch situations, Lou, he's come up big for them.
He's picked up some
big first downs for them in some really big spots where they're backed up behind the sticks. And I think now, with having that timing element, now that's where you keep defenses on their toes a little bit. It's like you do those touches that you would give Ainias to Jahan so that a defender doesn't know if he's going to be just going across the formation. If that's all he does, where he moves into the formation, does an orbit, rocket, any sort of motion, and you're going to give it to him on a quick screen, like, yeah, you could kind of figure that out watching tape after a little bit. But he's making plays downfield. He's making back shoulder plays, which depend on timing. And at the same time, he's still this gadget type of role player that you can use. And this is a really big game for him against a team where opportunities are going to be abound. This isn't next week against the Ravens, where hopefully, fingers crossed, DeVonta Smith comes back 100% healthy for that game. That's a secondary where it's going to be a little bit tougher when you play Pittsburgh in a couple weeks. The Rams might be the last opportunity outside of the games against the Giants and Cowboys, and probably the Panthers, that you are probably going to air this thing out to the nth degree.
No, and I like that they're resting Smitty, and you can tell the last few weeks that he just hasn't really been able to be at 100%, right?
I believe it's rest, right? Like, you think it's like a long-term rest too, like they like their odds going into this game.
Has popped up the last few weeks on the injury report, and I don't think it's a coincidence since that Jaguars game. DeVonta really hasn't been as effective, looking at the Cowboys and Commanders matchups specifically. So yeah, I think it's a rest thing. They've got a lot of big matchups coming up, and you need these guys healthy. Like, Gino, one reason for sometimes the Eagles' struggles at the end of the regular season the last couple years has been some of these core pieces being really banged up. Jalen Hurts, DeVonta Smith, A.J. Brown, like the list goes on. So make sure these guys are healthy for the stretch run. And yeah, like you said, against the Rams, this matchup specifically, I think Dotson and Wilson will be just fine as those 4th and 5th targets.
And this isn't, I don't want to disrespect the Rams. Like, this is an opponent that you have to take 100% seriously, because once again, their back is against the wall, Lou. Like, they have to win this game if they want to keep pace in the NFC. And this is not a team that you can take lightly with Sean McVay, even though Fangio does get the better of him in a majority. They got playmakers. Kyron Williams can run the ball. The way their offensive line is forcing the envelope, they're giving Matt Stafford time to find Nakua, find Kupp. But at the same time, you have to trust your options as well. This was the exact scenario you and I were talking about at the end of the season last year, when things were getting just fiddled away. Nobody was healthy. Like, who is the next man up? And then come the end of August, here comes Jahan Dotson at our doorstep. And we're saying, okay, this opportunity is going to arise at some point in this season.
Yeah.
We're here week 12, a week before Thanksgiving, Lou. This is what Jahan Dotson was brought in for. The light will never shine brighter on him than right now, in my opinion. But he's got to step up to the plate, man. Former first-round pick. This is a really good opportunity for the kid. I like their opportunities for the role players to get involved as well. Give us a nice, healthy dose of Dallas Goedert, though. Make the Rams tackle you in the open field. Give Saquon Barkley the ball, but don't shy away from those role players, man. I think that's probably where in 2024 as opposed to 2023, Jalen has found those guys. It took a little bit for him to like trust in Olamide Zaccheaus, who they still didn't give a ton of target share to. Jahan Dotson is not that player. Yeah, and Quez couldn't separate to save his life, dude.
Yeah, and speaking of separation, I know Dotson's numbers, like his advanced metrics, didn't look great in the beginning of the year and the majority of the season. But you know, like, this is the one thing though too. When you know you're the fourth, fifth option, I don't think you're going to come out guns a-blazing off the line of scrimmage as much. When you're running a lot of clearing routes and longer developing plays, like I don't know if your separation numbers are going to look as good. So I do think Jahan Dotson is a player that can separate at this level. I think that was one of his main strengths that made him a 16th overall pick not that long ago. So I know the numbers don't look great, but I do think the more he gets acclimated to this offense and the more involved he is, I think you'll see those numbers improve.
I do too. And Jalyx Hunt, another young, talented player at a position where it's pretty top heavy, and you're going to have to find out like who's the next guy up. These opportunities, don't take them lightly. These are the games that when you're saying we're drafting a player and we need experience, or we're acquiring a player and we need experience in XYZ scenario, this is scenario A through Z for those guys. Like Bryce Huff out for probably 4 weeks at a minimum, going on the injured reserve. Jalyx Hunt is going to be healthy and playing every single game. Jahan Dotson, for as long as DeVonta Smith is out, you're going to have to be that number 2 and might have to be that number 2 later down the road. So these in-game experiences, you can't take them lightly. These are great opportunities for these two young players.
And I think the Eagles still have an opportunity to have success throwing the football against Los Angeles Rams. We'll put our money where our mouth is in that case. Coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles with LOE3. This episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast, we are sponsored today by BetterHelp, BetterHelp Online Therapy. This month, it's all about gratitude. There's another person outside of family and friends and, everybody out there that you want to thank, and it's yourself. It's something that sometimes is hard for people to do. We're trying our best to make sense of everything, and in this crazy world, not easy at times to thank yourself. Do it through BetterHelp Online Therapy. If you're thinking of giving therapy a try, definitely give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Whether you're the morning shift, the graveyard shift, weekends, and more, BetterHelp is extremely flexible. All you got to do is fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and if it's not the right fit, you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Let the gratitude flow with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOn today. You'll get 10% off your first month of online therapy. Once again, that's BetterHelp.com/LockedOn for 10% off your first month of online therapy.
This episode is also brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. And Lou, they usually send us something to say, but this is completely real-life experience. Today, the in-laws said they're coming to town for Thanksgiving. The brother-in-law and his family's coming into town. And you know who else is coming to town? Connor McDavid is taking on the Colorado Avalanche on the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And we didn't get 1, we didn't get 4, we didn't get 5. We got 9 tickets in the same exact section. There's no other place you can go on the site. You're going to have to get 5 and 4 or 4 and 5 or sit everywhere else. No, Game Time. Make sure to have you covered, and they will filter out all the fluff and show you the incredible deals on great seats so that you don't have to waste any time searching through thousands of tickets. Like I said, I just went on to Game Time, said I needed 9 tickets for this game, and boom, it was right on my app. That was right on my phone. Didn't even have to go on the computer. And you could get in on the action over at Game Time, and you could go to comedy shows, or if you want to go to the theater, you can go there. Hamilton is coming to town next year. The wife wants to go. We're getting tickets over at Game Time, and you can download the Game Time app today, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day, as we do every Friday for segment 2. We got player props for you through FanDuel, LOE, 3 Eagles, Rams this Sunday night. Gino, and I think as we've mentioned throughout the week, the theme is pass the football. Even without DeVonta Smith, I think A.J. Brown, who had a huge game against the Rams last year, that was when he was just going nuclear with 120-plus yard performances in 6 straight games. Dallas Goedert, I like the mismatch against the Rams' second level of that defense. I think Jahan Dotson has been getting more and more comfortable with Jalen Hurts and vice versa, has made some big plays over the last month. Even Saquon Barkley, he's been getting a lot more involved in the receiving game since that Jaguars matchup. So, I like the passing attack to have success, and I think a lot of our bets are going to reflect that today.
It was tough the last couple weeks. We didn't have one last week on the short week on Thursday. Yep. The Dallas one, it was up and down for us. We both went 1 and 2 by the skin of my teeth. I got Saquon Barkley to have 10 rush yards in each quarter. But we continue to grind, and I think this is a good opportunity, and hopefully the big dogs can get it done, but the role players, they might have some value here at FanDuel.
No, I agree. And, Gino, our first bets, we both like Jalen Hurts to have success through the air, and I took the over on 225 passing yards. It's at plus 102. You took the over on 1.5 passing touchdowns at plus 148. Jalen, one of his best games, I thought, of the season last year was against the Rams. I thought it was a really underrated performance. It wasn't the, MVP showing of the Buffalo Bills game or the fourth quarter heroics of Dallas and against Kansas City, but that was one of his best 4-quarter games from a completion standpoint. So I like him to have that success again this week.
Regardless of what failed NFL quarterback Colt McCoy might say about Jalen Hurts, he does plenty of things special. One of the dumbest things I'll ever hear.
Failed quarterbacks like to go after Jalen.
Oh, they do, because he's a really good thrower of the football. And I think we've probably seen the best stretch of Jalen in terms of consistency over the last 4 to 5 weeks or so.
Yeah.
This is another game where those tests are going to be there, man, and those one-on-ones are going to be open with A.J. Brown, like you had said. I love the opportunity to throw the football in this game. You got to set it up with the run, though. Got to be able to make LA be conscious of Saquon Barkley around the line of scrimmage. But Jalen Hurts, if one thing, he's been accurate, hasn't been putting the ball in too much danger outside of the game 2 weeks ago against the Cowboys. Even that was a 50-50 type of throw. I like Jalen Hurts to be dialed in this week.
And you did say, of course, you got to be balanced, run the football as well. Saquon Barkley, offense has been running through him pretty much all year long. Your second bet is Saquon Barkley over 125 total yards from scrimmage, rushing and receiving. That's at plus 125. And again, I like that, because Jalen's been a lot more willing to throw the check down lately. And I think as the season goes on and Jalen's trying to stay healthy for the playoffs, which has been an issue the last few years, I think he'll at times pick and choose his spots running the football and just say, hey, this 2-yard dump off like against Washington, that can go for a 43-yard completion. I think the more and more Saquon does that, like he did against Dallas as well, splitting those 2 defenders, it's only going to encourage Hurts to throw to him more, regardless of what the look is.
And at this point, you could basically say at any given time he's good for 75 plus on the ground. So
and any play can be a 20-plus yard run.
Exactly. So, the explosives are through the roof. I was going back at fourth, over 150 yards was at plus 260, and only for 25 more yards, you're getting a whole bunch of value there. But still, this is one of those consistent bets where it's like, lay the foundation, keep the foundation there. Saquon Barkley's going to go for 125 plus. He almost went for 200 plus in the last game. You should 100% believe he's going to do that this week. And I think we underestimate Jordan Mailata being back for yet another week, being back in the rotation. That rust is probably gone. They're probably going to be firing off the ball when it comes to the run game and hopefully be good protecting the pass.
Didn't seem like there was a lot of rust anyway. Jordan Mailata didn't give up a single pressure last week.
Right. The line did look a little out of sorts, but still fair.
No, I agree. And when it comes to the run offense early on, for sure. But another week go, and I think Saquon will have a good game against LA. My second bet is A.J. Brown, an anytime touchdown at plus 135. Gino Brown had a touchdown in the first 3 games that he played in against Green Bay, Cleveland, and the Giants, but the last 4 games he has not scored, which is unlike AJ. He is very prone to score in the end zone for Philadelphia. So with DeVonta Smith out as well, I think he'll be a red zone target. Also, not a great secondary. I think they'll take a couple deep shots to number 11. I saw a stat actually this week that Hurts and Brown have the most deep yardage combined of a quarterback receiver duo of any in the NFL this year. So of 20-plus yard completions. So that's kind of the connection. I like him to score. I like him to get in the end zone on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm sure Colt McCoy didn't have that stat to throw in his pipe and smoke. But no, that's a great one, Lou. And I think the Rams' young safeties are going to be what you want to target. You're going to want to test that aggressiveness early on. You're going to want to say, okay, bite on this underneath crosser, and then we're going to get you on the double move the next time, and we're going to pop out the back end.
He likes to hunt for the ball, so you could probably catch him on a couple sluggos.
I think, the double moves against a man-heavy defense like the Rams, that's the way to go.
And A.J. Brown's almost unguardable in man coverage, too. So I like that bet at plus 135. Gino, your final bet is an anytime touchdown for the guy we've talked a lot about on the show today, Jahan Dotson. And that would be his first score of the year. That's at plus 550.
Got to trust him. I have to trust him here. I made this wager early on when A.J. Brown was out of those first couple games.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about. The trust wasn't there. The timing wasn't there. Now it is. Now is the time. Dude, how nice would it be to... Yeah, we would love to see AJ break like a nice long touchdown, but like how nice would it be to have Jahan Dotson like just stack a corner and you just put the ball up, he runs under it and gets to the house. That was one of the things he did really well at Penn State was those long, deep, explosive plays. Let's add some more totals to him, man. Like continue to push the ball his way and let him continue to just get more and more confidence, and Jalen get more and more confidence. At plus 550, man, I got to ride that.
No, I like that too. My final bet, I wanted to make a bet that has to do with the Eagles' defense. So
this is a Quinyon Mitchell bet.
This is a Quinyon, yeah, exactly. This is a Quinyon and Cooper DeJean bet against the Battle of the Coops, Cooper Kupp, the under on 65.5 receiving yards. It's at minus 114. Kupp and Nakua, kind of interchangeable, both play inside and out. So I'm sure DeJean, Quinyon, and Darius Slay will all get a healthy dose of Cooper Kupp in this matchup. But yeah, Gino, it's kind of a bet on this secondary. All three corners have a grade from PFF that's atop the number 1 through 32 corners in the NFL. That's the kind of season this trio is having. And I like them to continue to stay hot in this one.
McVay is going to be somebody that's going to present a lot of eye candy behind the line of scrimmage. Yeah. You're going to have to be very sound to your position. He's going to get those guys open. We know that. And Stafford is going to push the ball their way. But I like these two guys that are bigger bodied. I think they match up really well with Quinyon, matches up well with Coop, matches up well with Slay. These are the type of guys I like the Eagles corners to defend. Those small little shiftier guys, like I don't love it just because it doesn't match up like completely with them. But you get your average 6'1" wide receivers that are a little bit bigger. Yeah, that's going to be a fun one, man. Physical, a lot of hand fighting over the middle of the field. It's going to be a fun one. But
dare I say it's an exciting matchup in the slot, Gino?
Exciting, and let's associate a color to it. It might be an exciting white day in the slot, man. Like good day for Cooper Kupp, good day for Reed Blankenship. Shut down those two guys. That's how the Rams beat you.
You do that, and you win this game.
The blueprint couldn't smack you any more in the face than it is. It's Cooper Kupp. It's Puka Nuka, as Lou would like to say, Puka Nakua. Stop those two. Great day for the secondary. Show that Quinyon Mitchell continues to have Defensive Rookie of the Year praise.
Well, and that's also why I bet this, Gino, because on the other side, Jared Verse is playing for the Rams, and he's seen as the national favorite for Rookie of the Year. So I want to put my money where my mouth is and say Quinyon's going to have the better day. So kind of a Quinyon and DeJean bet. But Darius Slay, too, he's having a really underrated season. So that's just kind of betting on the trio for the Eagles at corner. LOE3, as always, presented by FanDuel. We'll wrap the show coming up next. The Eagles are kind of at the point of the season where they collapsed last year. How do they make sure they avoid that same fate? We'll get into it as we wrap up this Friday edition of Locked On Eagles. This episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by Bilt Rewards. PSA for anyone who rents. If you haven't heard of Bilt, you're about to thank me. Earning points on rent is now a reality when you pay your rent through Bilt. You don't even have to check with your landlord to start earning points that you can use towards flights, hotel stays, fitness classes, and even your next rent payment. Let me break it down for you. If you're a renter, I would take advantage of this. There's no cost to join Bilt, and as a member, you'll earn valuable points on rent and on your everyday spending. Bilt points can be transferred to your favorite hotels and airlines, and even the ones you haven't heard of. There are over 500 airlines and 700,000 hotels and properties around the world you can redeem your Bilt points towards. Points can also be redeemed towards a future rent payment and unique experiences that only Bilt members can access. So if you're not earning points on rent, my question is, why not? Start earning points on rent you're already paying by going to joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. That's joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL. Make sure to use our URL so they know that we sent you. Again, joinbuilt.com/LockedOnNFL to start earning points on your rent payments today. All right, so the Philadelphia Eagles are 8-2. They are red hot right now, riding a 6-game win streak, only 1 game back of the 1 seed in the NFC behind the Detroit Lions. First place in the NFC East after that statement win against the Washington Commanders. Things are looking great, Gino. Jalen Hurts has been as efficient as we've seen since 2022. Saquon Barkley, if you removed quarterbacks, might be the MVP favorite. The defense is balling on all 3 levels. So how do they make sure that they avoid the fate of the 2023 Eagles that were 10-1? And I think a lot of that collapse was a unique circumstance of a post-Super Bowl run season. So I don't even know if this season really applies in that way. But is there anything you think they can take from that collapse and say, hey, like, these are a few things we need to avoid as the games get more and more important, as the season kind of gets to that same point that last year they just completely crumbled under?
That you can't just go through the motions and win football games.
Yeah.
That talent just doesn't win games for you. That throwing out A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith doesn't win games for you. You have to play as a team on every single level. And like you said, that was a completely different set of circumstances.
Yeah, very unique.
Like, let's talk about the elephant in the room that they haven't made a change at the defensive coordinator position. And they did that last year. So things were tumultuous. And there was a lot of finger pointing. You do this, you don't do that. It seems like all of it, and this is inside of the building, and we've said this, they all kind of like each other, and it seems really kumbaya.
It feels like a much closer locker room than last year.
Yeah, last year, like, you felt it. There was a feeling around that team, and like, oh, these guys don't want to show up and play. Like, they were checked out after they started that downturn, and like you said, is it just a lingering effect of playing 20 some odd games in that Super Bowl season? And
I think it was part of it.
Dead halfway through the year. Well, hey, you didn't play a playoff game last year. Technically did, but you didn't play the game. Like, let's be honest. You were not there. And mentally, they're still checked in, because Lou, there's not been a moment in 2024 where your quarterback has looked at the sidelines after getting hit and shrugged his shoulders like he didn't know what to do.
Because they're all bought in.
That was the moment they died.
No, for sure. I think the players lost a lot of faith in each other, in the coaching staff. I thought they let the outside noise get to them, the pressure of that post-Super Bowl run get to them, where even in wins, they weren't enjoying themselves. Like, you saw that story where an inside source said, it's the most miserable 10-1 team I've ever seen. The Niners lost, the Cowboys lost. Like, that kind of killed their confidence too, because they're like, oh, maybe we're just not as good as we thought we were. Maybe we're not as good as last year. So it was a very unique set of circumstances last year that maybe don't apply this year, and it's a very different team too, like you said, Gino. Like, they have new coaches, the defensive personnel is different, and it's a lot better. So you're not like, like, there were fixes last year, like linebacker, there were just no fixes to the issues, right?
And I think it was done.
Yeah, so, but I do think you're right. Like, there's a couple things, like, you truly have to take every situation play by play, game by game, day by day. That was a problem last year because they were just trying to get back to the Super Bowl. I think they were looking too down the road, and they kind of got tripped up in the whole process, right? I think they were miserable because it was such a lengthy process. So you just got to truly, like Nick Sirianni says it a lot, and it feels like coach speak, but you really do have to not get ahead of stay where your feet are and just take everything day by day.
It's 1-0 every single week, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't look at these bigger aspirations if you don't get the job done.
Because it just felt like last year they were just like, okay, let's get through the regulars, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, let's get to the playoffs. We don't want to deal with this. Like, just get us back to that stage so we can try to avenge it. But that was what kind of killed them.
They wanted to just respawn in the playoffs, and that's not how football works.
They didn't want to reclimb the mountain. They just wanted to take a helicopter back up to the top.
And it felt very similar to 2018, 2019. Like, those teams felt the exact same way, in my opinion. And I even feel, Lou, the first 4 games of the season kind of felt like that. Where it was like, we can just kind of go through the motions and we'll be all right. And it's like, what if they were playing the way they are now in those first 4 games. Like, how close is that Green Bay game? How much more do you blow the Saints out of the water? Do you even keep Atlanta close in that game, right? Like, those are the things you can kind of ask now that we've seen this nice stretch of play. But I will also warn you with this, we saw a good stretch of play before the downfall. Before the downfall, you beat some of the best teams in the National Football League.
I was going to say, they kind of crushed that gauntlet.
But I think they found out that that's not what wins you games. Like, that's not what wins you Lombardis.
No, they know, Gino. I think they learned from this. And again, there's things that Howie fixed that last year you just couldn't fix in season.
Gardner Johnson wasn't here. The corner.
They have the personnel and they have the right coaches. This isn't Matt Patricia suddenly taking over for Sean Desai.
No, like the crap that the defense was getting away with Patricia and just not even like looking gap sound, defending the run, and just like they couldn't do anything on the backside.
On offense, like Brian Johnson, Nick Sirianni are doing
no accountability. I mean, if anybody's accountable, it's Vic Fangio. We've said that since the bye week. Yeah. Their offensive minds are kind of on the same page now.
Yeah. Like the bye week is proof, Gino, that they are past that collapse because they didn't just go through the motions after the bye and just lean on personnel. They fixed the problems that last year they're like, play the next game. Let's see if we can fix it this time. Like, let's just play the next one. Hit restart. It's like you're restarting the video game, but you're still on All-Star mode, and you're not good enough to play on All-Star mode. You got to lower it. You got to adjust. And I think this year's team adjusted, and that's why they're going on the run they are.
And it started. I mean, the minute that Tampa Bay game ended, like that's really when they realized. I think a lot of people realized. I mean, go look at Jeffrey Lurie's face on the broadcast when they were getting the doors beat off them by Baker Mayfield in the playoffs.
That's why we know there's not going to be a collapse, because the moment the collapse was going to happen like it did last year, it's already passed. It was week 4, and they didn't collapse. They got better from it. So that's proof to me that slump's not coming again. At least that's how I'm feeling.
I don't believe so. I mean, you might see them come down to earth in a couple areas. Like, does the pass defense stay this good? And
no, probably not. There's tougher matchups too coming up. So
without a doubt, man. But I don't see that.
They're not losing 5 of 6.
No,
right? I mean that's
the identity talk we get into a lot, and I know you're not as favorable in that, like saying like a team has to have an identity, but I think the identity is. We know what the job is. Like we got thrown down the mountain last year.
No, culturally, I want them to have an identity. It was always more of like a system schematic thing. I don't need it.
Yeah, but like the identity now is we haven't earned SHIT. Yeah. Like we like everybody, all the elite, like Chauncey preaches that now, and like the young guys on the D line preach that, and Jalen preaches that, and Nick preaches that. They're on the same page. Where last year it felt like a middle school relationship where somebody got a text that they weren't supposed to get, and now everybody in the middle school knows all the information, and you're picking Joey's side, you're picking Bobby's side, you're picking Brittany. Like, it was everybody was just like in their own corner, and it didn't feel like a football team. Where 2022, that's what it was. They responded to adversity. They were in adversity a lot that season. 2023, the point differential wasn't as great in that 10-1 win. There were ways that they were winning. Where other people were saying, I think you and I kind of were blind to it a little bit. Like, is this enough to hold up? Like, what they're doing now, this is sustainable.
Yes,
this way where you run the football and you're able to take it away and you're able to set the tone on the defensive line, and your quarterback isn't just in this downfall where he just is in his head. Jalen is not in his head at all. He is cooking right now. The offensive line is cooking. The defense is cooking. Continue this. And even if things aren't perfect, remember that you've won games where things aren't perfect. Lean on that Jaguars game. Lean on those games where it wasn't great.
This run feels more like the 2017 win streak, the 2022 win streak, whereas last year was 2018's win streak at the end of the season, 2019's win streak, where you're saying, okay, this is awesome, and it's really impressive what they're doing, but because of this reason, this isn't sustainable, and the dam's going to break eventually. That is not the kind of run I feel like they're on right now. Last year, you could feel that. Even with beating good teams, you're like, they can't keep doing it this way. This isn't going to be enough. And that's why in all 3 of those seasons, they underperformed.
And I think a lot of the pushback we've given like Nick Sirianni this year is because a lot of those things are like they've cleaned up the on the field. They've cleaned up the off the field. It's like we're just trying to pick at little things to make better, because if those little things don't get better, that's what happens last year. Yeah. Like there were still elements of 2022 that were not perfect, but Howie, like everybody else, was like, we'll go through the motions. We'll just, whatever happens, and we'll be okay. Now in the NFL, it changes like that. And they figured that out. It just, I wish there was a way to quantify it. You could get in all these different stats, like point differentials better, and like where they're starting on the field is better. I think it's an unquantifiable thing right now of why you should feel better about this team than last year.
Well, I like
it's something inside of that building.
I just think they like each other. I think they're a close.
Yeah, they're playing together, man. It's fun again. Yes.
Yeah, I think they're dancing, like they're turning the ball over, or they're forcing turnovers, and they're dancing in the end zone. Like they're all doing the Reed Blankenship dance together. Q's new signature move.
Yeah,
and I think that's a big part of this. And last year, I don't want to say they didn't like each other, because a lot of the players are the same on offense, at least. But I think everybody was feeling pressure in their own unique way, and they were all just miserable because of it.
Yeah, can't be worse than last year is my mentality. Like it cannot be worse than one of the worst downfall for them to not win the division last year.
Crazy.
Inexplicable. It's inexplicable from where they were.
Well, like me and you both said in the offseason, I think it's the biggest collapse that contenders ever had in season. So I don't think that's coming again.
Wins and lessons, man. Like you have to learn from that stretch.
I think they turned it into a lesson for sure. That's why I feel good about this stretch run. And it's a difficult schedule coming up, starting with the Rams on Sunday, but I think the Eagles are going to continue to stay hot, riding the 6-game win streak. We got you covered after the game, Sunday Night Football, Eagles-Rams, right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast, and then all of next week as well. Thanks so much for making us your first listen and watch each and every day. Until then, though, we're going to sign off. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Louie DiBiase. As always, thanks so much for downloading, watching, and listening, and let's go Birds.
Fly, Eagles, fly.